Hello everyone, my name is André Gagné. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm going to continue my series on apostolic centers. It's been a while I've done a video. I'm sorry about this. I'm very busy these days at the university with the start of the semester, but I'm back. So I'm going to try to be more regular in the production of videos as much as I can. It's a very, very busy semester with teaching big classes and a lot of administration to do, a lot of responsibilities as an undergrad program advisor. So I'm really sorry about that. I hope that you stick around and that you're patient with me. And I hope that these videos are useful somehow. So today what I'm going to do is give some examples of how apostolic centers and especially apostolic leaders try to train individuals to become social transformation agents. Because it's all about influence, if you remember. Right? If you look at the Seven Mountains Mandate strategy, it's about having key individuals in all of these different spheres, these seven spheres, in order to influence. And it's through influence that social change can happen. If we kind of summarize again those mountains, you will notice that a lot of what undergirds this strategy is, of course, a concern for what many Christians call the traditional family values. The mobilization of Christians really started in the political arena around issues pertaining to abortion, and then also things around LGBTQ rights. So as you can see on your screen, this is a representation of the seven mountains. You see that the family is really at the basis of the other cultural spheres. So you see the family at the bottom is there, and then you have media, education, and arts and entertainment, which defines the worldview and beliefs and values that families will have. And then you have the government, which of course enforces laws, and of course in the context of this Seven Mountains mandate, it's all about bringing laws and trying to influence government policies according to a biblical worldview. Business is also one of these spheres. As you can see, it's very clearly mentioned here, and it's all about prosperity. It's all about economics, having families flourish, and of course the sphere of religion or the church, and how these values are communicated in the Christian community. And you see the basis of these cultural mountains. They inspire themselves out of a passage that we find in the Hebrew Bible in Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2. How shall it come to pass, now shall it come to pass that in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. So essentially, when you think about it, it's all lined up, and they of course read some of these passages metaphorically, or they give a spiritual meaning to these passages. And here in this context, they apply it to the cultural spheres. Now, this is also rooted, as we know very well, in a principle that is found in the Lord's Prayer in Matthew chapter 6. in verses 9 and 10. As you can see on your screen, you see the influence of how the mission of Jesus for these groups is interpreted, in the work, in the church, in the city, in the nation, in one's life. It's all about your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now, this is what we mean by dominionism. The Seven Mountains Mandate is a form of dominionism. It's not Christian Reconstructionism. In a sense, it is at the same time, because Christian Reconstructionism laid the foundation for these mountains, but it's also seen now in a kind of a renewed form through charismatic dominionism. You have a lot of important leaders since C. Peter Wagner started or founded the New Apostolic Reformation. You have more and more charismatic leaders embracing this idea of dominionism and expressing it through these seven mountains of culture. Now, it's like I said, if you remember clearly, it's all about influence. You have people like Os Hillman, for example, that has an important ministry to those that are in the workplace, and how he conceptualizes the idea of this mandate. And you can find, even in his own material, a lot of the things that I'm talking to you about. In fact, what I'm trying to do is look at what they say and try to break it down for people that are not familiar with their strategy. Hillman, as you can see on this next image here that you see on your screen, he talks about influence, and he talks about spheres of influence. It's all about, at the center is Jesus, and then it's the family, it's work, it's the local church, it's the city and the community, it's all about the nation, and eventually it leads to transforming the world. But it's influencing every aspect of life to eventually influence the world and become leaders that will make change. Now, this idea, again, flows from the concept of apostles in the marketplace, or apostles in the workplace, but it goes beyond the idea of apostles only and prophets. They do recognize the fact that the church is built on Christ, and also on the foundation of apostles and prophets, according to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 20. But when it comes to the role of these ministries, because it's also, the church is comprised of individuals, and they have leadership roles. You have, of course, pastors, teachers, evangelists, apostles, and prophets. But these individuals will not, for many of these people that promote the idea of a seven mountains mandate, they will not necessarily manifest itself only in the context of a local church. But they can also be called to these types of ministries and roles and functions in the context of the marketplace. You see, I found something very interesting in one of Hillman's PowerPoint presentations, and you can see it on the screen. He quotes part of Ephesians chapter 2, verse 20, but then he talks about the mature church, the church that is in the city, the church that is in the world. It's actually the establishment of the kingdom of God. And then he has all of the fivefold ministries placed in this position with Jesus as the foundation. But you have the fivefold ministries placed as members that function in the context of the workplace. For example, you have apostles and prophets that can be seen as CEOs, prophets also, or chief financial operators. they in the marketplace would not necessarily be called apostles and prophets, but they would have this role, this foundational role in the marketplace that corresponds to apostles and prophets. Whereas pastors, teachers, and evangelists, you would find them also embedded in the marketplace, but they would not be necessarily called that way. They would be seen as people that are in charge. For example, the pastoral ministry is one that's very close to individuals. So people involved in customer service, HR, and certain CEOs can also have that gift of pastoring, but in the context of the marketplace. Teachers, people that are in charge of groups, corporate trainers, evangelists, people that are on the road, people that are in charge of sales, things like that. So they envision. What's interesting with this is that they envision the fivefold ministries, their functions, outside the local church. Outside the walls of the church. So the church becomes a living organism, and this is how they understand it, that is embedded in the world. And these people are trained, of course, in apostolic centers or local churches. That's fine. They're trained by the leaders of the church, the pastors, evangelists, teachers, apostles, and prophets in the church, to have the same functions outside the walls of the church. And this is how they will manage to bring about this social transformation. This is the strategy. In fact, it's not about just doing church on Sundays. It's going beyond the walls of the church. Now, what I want to do, because I can't touch on many things, it would take too much time, but I want to give you some examples of groups that are working towards this idea of social transformation, that they are involved in leadership training. I'll give you 2 or 3 examples, and I would encourage you to actually look at their websites, continue to delve into what they do to have a better sense and see the other connections that they have with other groups or other organizations. There are many more of these, but I focused on these 3. It's pretty straightforward what they're all about. You can see on your screen there's a group called the Trinity Forum. It's very interesting, a little group that focuses a lot on reading groups. But their goal, as you can see on their page, I'm providing a screenshot of their page here. Their mission and vision is to contribute to the transformation and renewal of society through the transformation and renewal of leaders. So they are a base, a kind of a base to train and form leaders to transform society. You see, at the bottom, the second paragraph is very interesting, that little paragraph. It really describes the type of work that they do. They say, we believe that the distraction, incivility, polarization, and pathology of our age stems in part from the lack of spiritual and character formation in leaders. There are few opportunities to grapple with, reflect on, and discuss fully what matters most. The Trinity Forum endeavors to cultivate, curate, and disseminate the best of Christian thought to equip leaders to think, work, and lead wisely and well. So what we see clearly, that's their mission, to train individuals to become leaders so that these leaders will be examples in the world and they will be able to influence their sphere of work. That's the goal of this organization. So it works in partnership with, of course, local churches, but it is itself a group. It is itself a ministry, and the goal is to engage in social transformation. So they don't hide this. This is very, very clear. You can surf their website. They're going to talk about some of the events that they hold. They have conferences and they have these reading groups, and people can start reading groups if they're interested, and they read specific texts and try to engage in a dialogue and equip individuals to be better leaders and reflect the spiritual values that they believe in. And of course, they say that the reason why society is where it is today is because people, there's a lack of mature character and spirituality in the lives of individuals. But in the end, it boils down to Christian values. It's all about Christian values and making sure that the best of Christian thinking is spread in society. That's the goal. Now, there is another one that's very interesting. It's called the Christian Embassy, and you can see on your screen the screenshot of its opening page, and it's very clear. This is their goal. It's summarized in one very pithy mission statement: connecting leaders to Jesus Christ. And here it's very political, of course. They are implemented in various places in the world. They have an office in DC, of course, and this is the website of DC, but you can click on other places and you'll see that they are involved in other areas of the world. And as you can see now on your screen, I've provided what they say about themselves. It's very interesting also how they conceive their mission, what their purpose is. They say that they are a community of people living authentic lives of faith in Jesus Christ, and that they believe that faith impacts all areas of life. That means personal, professional, and social. And in this context here in this, on this website, they serve Washington leaders and their spouses and staff in the administration on Capitol Hill and the Pentagon and in foreign embassies, and stand with them in pressures of their public and private lives with confidentiality and without an agenda. Okay, without an agenda. But again, you know, that's of course the way they present themselves. And they present themselves as tolerant and open to all faiths and backgrounds. Now, the purpose is they are a team that encourages leaders to investigate the teachings and principles of Jesus Christ. You see, again, the focus is on the principles of Jesus Christ. And of course, they will manage to influence people to look at these principles by building relationships of trust, teaching God's word, praying, and serving for the greater good of our leaders. But as you can see at the bottom, the story is very interesting because this Christian embassy is actually connected to the Campus Crusade for Christ that was founded by Bill Bright and his wife. So we know that Bright is at the core of these mountains or spheres of culture. So we shouldn't be surprised, in a sense, that they're involved in trying to transform society. And from a political perspective, here we have an example of how a certain group is targeting the government, is targeting politics, is trying to influence political players in bringing about, in cultivating Christian values and trying to propagate those values at the government level. And of course, they play a role of support for individuals that do have some kind of faith, more particularly, of course, Christian faith. What's interesting is there's a Canadian branch, as you can see on your screen. There's a Canadian branch of the Christian Embassy where, you know, on this page you can have information on the members of Parliament, senators, business leaders, professionals. And the goal, of course, is to inspire leaders with the person and values of Jesus. Now, again, it's all about Christian values. It's working at permeating the government and influencing strategic key individuals and empowering them in their spheres of influence at the government level. So this is very interesting. You have this in the US, you have this in Canada and other places. A last example, but not least, is the one that you now see on your screen called the Pinnacle Forum. The Pinnacle Forum. And I've provided 3 screenshots. We're going to look at the first one, which is interesting. It talks about transforming leaders to transform culture. So essentially what they are, the Pinnacle Forum is building a national network of influential leaders executing their God-given purpose to foster a flourishing, God-honoring culture. So essentially, they're not shy about what they're doing. They want to transform culture. They want to influence culture. And the Pinnacle group or forum has that goal. If you look at the second screenshot, this is very interesting because it does talk about the 7 mountains of culture. So they don't hide, they don't pretend that they're not attached to this idea. For them, it's clear. They are attached to the idea of the 7 mountains culture. And they do bring up Bill Bright. And of course, Cunningham was part of this initial vision. In '75, Bill Bright, founder of Campus Crusade for Christ, and Lauren Cunningham, founder of Youth with a Mission, had lunch together. And God simultaneously gave each of them a message to give to the other. The culture, this is the message, the culture is shaped by 7 mind molders or mountains in society. If we can influence each of these areas for Christ, we will win the culture of our nation. And now, of course, this is beyond the culture of the nation. Now it's the world. It's to bring about the kingdom of God in the world. And it's not just in the US. Here it was for them. It was important what was happening in America. But now we see this in Canada. We see this in Brazil. We see this in other areas across the world where this message is the goal, is to change societies. Now you see on that screen also, it's interesting, and they're mentioned. All of these spheres are mentioned very, very clearly. If you look at this other screenshot that I've just put, this is the last one. It's clear in this one that the Pinnacle Forum has a goal. It's the vision of the Pinnacle Forum that is at the heart of this awakening amongst Christian leaders. And see what they have done and what they're trying to do and the impact that they're having on the world. And you see it's in these bullet point elements, you have all of the issues pertaining to the mountains themselves, all of these spheres. You see, the Pinnacle Forum partners have had significant impact in the filmmaking industry through the production of movies that honor rather than denigrate faith and family, in education and the family through initiatives that empower at-risk youth, advance biblically based values in public schools, and provide a Bible as literature curriculum in public schools. In government and law, where partners provide pro bono legal assistance to Christians whose religious liberties are threatened, and where others occupy positions of influence among top government leaders and have helped elect Christians to public office. This is very clear. This is their mandate. They want Christians in public offices. In service to our veterans, through programs that connect veterans to Christian churches and services that help them work through the moral injury of war. In evangelism and assistance to the poorest of the poor around the world. in the media, through support of Christian radio and being a positive influence in the world of broadcasting, in city transformation ministries and initiatives, in business, where the advancement of biblical philosophy, of faith and work has helped change the business climate of an entire city. So as you can see, this is very clear. That's the mandate. And the Pinnacle Forum does not shy away from it. So you see, what I wanted to do in this short video is first of all, show you from the perspective of these leaders what they see, how they understand social transformation, how they understand the fivefold ministries as also being embedded in the workplace, and all of these ministries correspond to jobs that people can have in the workplace. And then we looked at different examples like the Trinity Forum and this one, the Pinnacle Forum and the Christian Embassy, of how leaders are trained and how certain groups have see it as a mandate and a mission to train people in high places, in important places of influence, to bring about this cultural transformation through this Seven Mountains mandate. So I'll stop here for today. I hope these videos are useful somehow. If they are, please share them. If you're learning something out of this, you can share, you can like. You can also think about subscribing, inviting other people to subscribe. All the content of these videos and the content of this channel, everything is free. So thank you once again. I will talk to you again very shortly about the importance of religion in our modern day and our world, and how it influences and tries to impact the societies in which we live. So have a great week, and talk to you again very shortly.